Let's take a look at Hofstede's dimensions of national culture. Hofstede has been a pioneer of mapping the diversity of human culture. Back in the 70s and 80s, he surveyed more than 116,000 IBM employees in 40 countries about their work-related values. These studies identified and validated 5 independent dimensions of national culture. First, power distance, individualism and collectivism, masculinity and femininity, uncertainty avoidance, and long-term orientation versus short-term orientation. So let's dive in. First, we have power distance. Power distance describes how well a society handles power-based inequality. It is the extent to which the less powerful members of work organizations and institutions accept and expect the unequal distribution of power. A high power distance country is more accepting of power differentials in a hierarchical order that gives everyone a place, and no further justification is needed. In a low power distance country, people strive to equalize the distribution of power and demand justifications for inequalities of power. In an organization, the power distributed between levels of management down to employees can be more accepted or rejected as employees want to participate in the decisions that affect them. Second, we have individualism or collectivism. In individualistic societies, people who have weak ties to others are expected to take care of themselves and their families, whereas in collectivistic societies, people think of themselves as part of a strong, interconnected group that often includes extended family. You can tell if a society is more individualistic or collectivistic by the type of language they use. If the people in that society talk more in terms of I, then it's more individualistic. If the people talk more in terms of we, then it's more collectivistic. In working culture, people in a more individualistic society will place the loyalty with themselves first and the group or company second. Whereas with collectivism, it ensures that group membership, such as being an employee or of a company, is actually placed first above the individual. A third dimension, masculinity and femininity, it's not to be confused with gender egalitarianism. Rather, it's based on the degree to which the society values achievement and competition versus cooperation and other orientation. It gets its name from the social roles ascribed to men and women, but is not related to gender inequality in the society. The masculinity side of this dimension represents a preference in society for achievement, heroism, assertiveness, and material rewards for success. Society at large is therefore more competitive. Its opposite, femininity, stands for a preference of cooperation, modesty, caring for the weak, quality of life. The society is more consensus-oriented. In the business context, masculinity versus femininity can also be described as tough versus tender cultures. Fourth, we have uncertainty avoidance. The uncertainty avoidance dimension expresses the degree to which the members of a society feel comfortable with the uncertainty and ambiguity in a situation. In other words, how does a society deal with the unknown? Do they try to control the future or do they just let it happen? Uncertainty avoidance cultures like structure and rules and policies and are less likely to take risks, whereas uncertainty acceptance cultures are more comfortable with dealing with change and taking on more risks. In an organization, you can see this trend in how long people tend to stay with their employees. For a long time, then it tends to be an uncertainty avoidance culture. Finally, we have long-term versus short-term orientation. This dimension was later added after collecting data in China. In long-term oriented societies, people foster virtues that emphasize future rewards, whereas short-term oriented societies emphasize the past and the present. Long-term oriented societies value perseverance, persistence, being thrifty or saving, as well as the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. On the opposite side, short-term orientation creates a strong connection to the past and the present. We can see this in societies that have a large national pride, a great respect for traditions, and moral social obligations. In general, culture is best understood in comparison, and these 5 dimensions help to provide some insight into how we can organize an otherwise overwhelmingly complex phenomenon.